Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest stream. Before we get into anything too interesting, I just need to clickety-clack, make sure everything is working as it should. How is everyone this morning? I hope everyone is doing as well as can be. Because that is the best most people can hope. Well, that's the best you can ever hope for, is to do as well as can be. Right. Just making sure the YouTube thing is YouTubing. Otherwise... Nope. There we go. That's better. For some reason, it defaults to minimum of $5 chats, which is weird. Okay. Right. Everything seems to be sorted, I think. Close that. And close that. Lower the volume just a touch. On the soft, soothing music brought to you by Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? It is Tuesday. Good morning, Phoenix and Alpha. I hope you're both doing as well as can be. All right. Nope, other way. Yeah. Still the other way. There we go. I'm in center frame now. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else other than center frame. Touching the microphone. Oh no! But I do have booba juice. So, cheers. There we go. That's better. All right, sharing link. Need to share the link. Okay. Right. That is there. That is there. Notifications have been manually sent because the notification system is thick. Good morning, Robert Lynn. Hope you're doing well. And Exilis Externa. Exilis Eterna. Good day, mate. There you go. Massimo, I can speak multiple languages. Hello? Did I just mess some? I found something weird on my keyboard. Well, you know, that's one way of doing it. A little extra is okay from time to time. Okay. I think it's working. I think it's working. And then you can go over there, and then you can go over there. So that I can see moving objects out of the periphery of my vision just to bug me while I'm narrating. That's always good. All right. Good morning, DeSoda. Hope you're doing well. Well, the life is doing as well as can be, Robert. Thank you for asking. I'm glad you're enjoying the content, Exilis. I really am. So we're going to be narrating stories today. It's going to be Read Tifos. Wait, we need to make that a bit smaller and then move that. What we're doing, we're not cutting off anything too much. No, perfect. Okay. We have 5 on YouTube and 1 on Twitch. Now, I'm thinking that I'm actually in a weird time zone. I'm not sure whether I should move my streaming hours forward or back. Because I feel like I'm coming through a bit too early in the US, especially for weekdays. But any earlier, it'll have to be significantly earlier, because, you know, time sleeps. Fair enough, post, Mark? Marcus. Fair enough. Alright. Nope, let's give it a proper name. No. 3199. Fear of spiders. Okay. Boomer juice for the win. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm about 10 to 14 hours out from the US, depending obviously on where you are. I am basically on GMT. So it is 9:30 in the morning for me. That makes sense. Well, opposite one. Yep. I did know that. So yeah, that would make sense. I said 10 to 14, 10 to 13. Because I think it's only the really tip of Alaska and Hawaii that are on their own sort of time zone. It's 1, 2, 3, yeah? Yes, Greenwich Mean Time. It's Greenwich that's mean. It's based off the play. What the hell's it called? The Wizard of Oz. Wicked. So there's mean Greenwich that controls time in this sort of area. I mean, Europe's a bit eclectic, so we've got different stuff that happens here. I mean, some people have physics that control time. We have a Greenwich, which is, good. Unless you're sleeping, then weird stuff happens. But yeah, where am I? I'm in Portugal, so I'm either +1 or 0, depending on daylight savings. Well, I don't move in daylight savings, but confusion must be had. I am definitely a time zone further back than South Africa. And apparently I'm on Western European summertime. Yeah, that's how it is. GMT or GMT1. Depending. We went through daylight savings and I didn't even know. All my clocks auto-updated, so I just one day woke up an hour earlier. Didn't even realize it was an hour earlier because all the clocks had changed, and then just carried on moving. I understand where daylight savings came from. Pre-electricity, it makes sense. Post-electricity, not so much. When you've only got so many hours in a day that you can work, and the time shifts and you can get up earlier and get more work done, makes sense. But in the modern age, not so much. To be fair, I think peak summer here, sun comes up at 6 o'clock in the morning and goes down at 10 o'clock at night. That is going to mess with my brain completely. It's going to just blow the last few brain cells out of my ear, possibly my nostril. Okay. Hydration. It's got electrolytes. Well, no, it doesn't. It's just water. Okay, on to the story. We've got some work to do, so we shall do the work. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Re-TFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Fear of Spiders, written by You Sure I'm Not a Robot. Excuse me. The library ship, co-sized, moved carefully towards the human space station, suspended over the beautiful blue and white marble of their world. The curator was practically climbing the walls in its excitement. What a glorious find, an unknown sentient spacefaring race. That's next year's grant application approved already. They prefer AI, as in they prefer AI written stories, or they prefer AI voice acting? Oh, to voice act for them. It's because they don't have to pay the AI. If you work for them, they'll have to pay you. And they could also open them up to legality on who owns what. So there'll have to be contracts and overheads and stuff, I'd imagine. That is just a guess. I have no idea. I'd say probably the best thing to do is to start your own channel and do what I do. Do what Net does, Net Narrator. Well, the problem is, it becomes a legal problem if you work for them. It could open them up to some stuff. And, I don't know. I have no clue. I'm literally just pulling this directly out of my rusty starfish. That's next year's grant application approved already. But I'd imagine it's they're built an audience off of AI voices, and they don't want to interrupt it with human voices. They don't need extra voices because they've got AI voices. So there's no wear and tear on voices and stuff, so they can pretty much do as much as they want in a day. Legal liability of having an employee or somebody doing something for free for you, possibly. I have no clue. Moved already. I mean, I wouldn't take on an extra person, but I do my own narration. No. This is why we stream. This is why we stream, Excellus. If you've got a question, ask. If I have an answer, or somewhat of an answer, I will try and answer it as best I can. So yeah, I can pause the narration and then chat to you guys and then continue the narration. It's not a problem. Just if you want to chat, chat. If you want to ask a question, ask a question. It all helps. And if you need to know something, then you need to know something. Approved already. As long as you're not spamming, I'm all good. His second scribe fluttered in agreement.
We have so much to teach them. They must be trembling with anticipation. First we must learn, then teach. But yes, no doubt it is a marvelous moment for them.
The space station independent... The space station independent tracked the incoming ship, watching with apprehension as it approached. It continued to broadcast its good intentions in several languages. Captain Modest watched. Vic, they had to turn up now. We searched the stars for years. Now we have 2 aliens turn up at once. And at least they're not shooting. Dear God, that scares the crap out of us. It's just very fucking random. Stop screaming at me. I don't even know what it was. Help. Help. Thank you for the gifted sub, Postmatic. It is very much appreciated. I forgot I turned those back on. And least. I think the problem is there's also so much higher in volume than everything else. But it does get your... It does get your attention, so I can't really complain about that. Now we have... Vic. Nah, Robert. I'm just a guy. I just do my thing. If you think it's great, it's awesome. There are people out there that don't like my voice, and that's also good. I just do what I do. Try to do my best. Vic, we had to turn up now. We searched the stars for years, and now we have 2 aliens turn up at once. At least they're not shooting this time. He turned to his second in command. Tell the engineers to stand down. The project is blown until we know what we're dealing with. Inform Earth and dig around my office for first contact stuff. It's buried in there somewhere. Captain Modest waited outside the airlock for his new guests to arrive. He had brought his science officer and engineering chief. He didn't have a Xeno officer yet. No one did. Now might be a good time to fix that. The second scribe entered the human vessel with a certain apprehension. They had traced the humans from the broadcast sphere surrounding the planet. They had a couple of centuries of low-quality audio and visual material to work with. Unfortunately, some of it was clearly fiction, while some of it was deeply Excuse me, that boomer juice was fighting back. While some of it was deeply hoped was fiction, but suspected wasn't. Her first priority was to establish communications and explain her mission. The human identified as captain was tall, very tall. They were tailless, bipedal, warm-blooded omnivores. Not unknown, but it was unusual for them to achieve spaceflight independently. Her species had developed from flightless avians. She suspected that there weren't any similar creatures on the home planet of these people, at least not for long. She bowed, her crest raised in respect.
Captain, we have some knowledge of your language and your broadcast sphere. I present you a device that can translate the common languages of the great galaxy. It'll permit you to translate the information we can provide. The captain returned the bow. If he had understood the strange broken Mandarin, then this was one hell of a gift. His science officer went to take it, but the engineer grabbed it.
I'll take that. I need to scan it before we attach it to anything important.
The quick glance showed that it had one switch, obviously an on-off switch. Obviously an on-off setup. They must have done this before. He turned it on and nodded to the captain.
Thank you for your gift. I welcome you to Earth and hope your relationship will be prosperous and peaceful.
The translator sent out a series of high-pitched squeaks. Apparently, it worked since the visitor bowed and replied.
It is our privilege to welcome you and your people to the greater galaxy. Our mission is simply to spread knowledge. We seek to learn about humanity and help you rise to the stars.
The box turned her warbles into English. Granted, it was the sort of English you might expect from a black and white newsreel from previous centuries. It was still better than her Mandarin. The second scribe had brought two other scholars. The second scribe had also brought two other scholars with her. The first was the closest to a co-sized. The second scribe had brought two other scholars with her. The first was the closest the co-sized had to human body type, nearly as tall, with similar facial features. Unfortunately, it was an engineer, not truly a scholar, but it was standard practice to try and put the new species at ease. The second scholar was, unhappily, a poor choice. The compound eyes and 8 limbs of their cultural analysis scholars seemed to be causing a great deal of discomfort amongst the humans. The second scribe tried to introduce it, but the humans were obviously uncomfortable.
Apologies, Scholar. I must ask you to return on board. Something about you is causing a fight/flight. Something. Something about you is causing a fight/flight. Something about you is causing a flight or flight. Something about you is causing a fight or flight reaction amongst the humans. I will endeavor to resolve it, but this is not the time.
Second scribe, this is very core to my profession. I must be present for the introduction of this new species.
She bowed to her colleague.
It is indeed a tragedy. I will record all the interactions for you. Now, please withdraw.
She quickly sent the disgruntled scholar back to the ship before it could become an issue. When everything seemed to be going so well, she would ask Captain about it privately. The captain heard a mixed warbles and squeaks between the two guests, but the translator remained silent.
Second scribe, does your gift not translate such language?
My apologies, Captain. You may set it as you wish, but we designate a spokesman, in this case myself, as the user. It allows a far more orderly approach. It is quite capable of translating for a crowd, if you wish. Our own devices are internal.
The alien engineer was staring around, obviously wanting to ask questions. The captain decided that this might be a learning moment for everyone.
Perhaps your engineer scholar might enjoy a tour with our chief. We can continue our discussion in my office.
The second
Perhaps your engineer scholar might enjoy a tour about you. Perhaps your engineer scholar might enjoy a tour with our chief. We can continue our discussion in my office.
The second scholar warbled her delight. This was the best kind of welcome. Some species held their technology to be a dark secret, never to be shared with strangers. It was a good sign if they were willing to be open about it. She turned to her engineer.
You are permitted to tour with the human engineer. Adjust your translator and please behave appropriately. I will rejoin you on the ship.
The captain and the second scribe walked away, leaving the two engineers examining each other. The chief felt he needed to take the lead. This was his station.
My name is Brenner, Chief Engineer Brenner, if you're being formal. May I ask if I have your name? May I ask if you have a name?
The alien touched its throat.
I am called Ulrich. I am also Chief Engineer. Thank you for your welcome.
His translator had inflected his English with a Scottish accent. Obviously, they had watched a lot of human entertainment on the way.
Well, Ulrich, what would you like to see?
The alien looked around.
Everything?
Well, the captain and the second talked earnestly about the endless possibilities of joining the greater galaxy. A more important alliance was being forged.
These are our engines. They provide a bit of thrust when we need them. Otherwise, they just provide power to the station and recharge our spacecraft as necessary. Occasionally, weapons is something... Occasionally, weapons if something heads our way. Rocks or debris, for example.
Auric peered at the control console.
Oh, from here? We have separate systems for those functions. This is controlled by one person?
Yes, of course. Power is power.
Auric considered. Deep in the heart or similar organ of every engineer was a desire to improve, to create something better, to save on staff costs. He liked all engineers. He, like all engineers, dreamed of a bigger budget. For Auric, he saw some clever systems, underpowered and missing some vital parts, but integrated in a way that would transform his field.
Possibly I could see some more. Your life support, perhaps.
The two engineers went section by section through the station. Finally, an impatient second scribe called her engineer.
Are you lost? In some form of distress, I have been waiting for you to return. As a cultural analysis scholar, return immediately.
Auric had lost track of time, forgotten that he was in first contact mission. He and Chief Brenner had spent hours talking about the systems, the improvements Galaxy Tech had available. The improvements the Galaxy Tech had available, and his delight in human design.
Chief Brenner, perhaps you would enjoy a tour of my ship tomorrow. I am afraid I must report to the second scribe.
The chief nodded. He, too, had nearly forgotten that this was an alien newly discovered.
I would be delighted, Ulrich. See you in the morning. I must report to the captain, but before you leave, may I ask you something?
I'm not sure I should tell you this, but...
I'm not sure I should tell you this, but we have encountered another alien species. It didn't end well. Perhaps you could identify them.
He moved to a console and played the visuals. A craft arrived at speed into range and immediately began firing on the station. Plasma smashed into the Independent.
We received no transmissions, no warning. They just arrived and started shooting. Any idea who they are?
Auric watched. The attackers were flying an old Intech cruiser. Cruiser, obsolete for many generations, still far beyond human tech.
That ship is very old. Only pirates would use one. I assume they demanded ransom. They are thieves, mostly. They stay out of the... They are thieves, mostly. They stay out here on the edge of civilization. No offense. How much did they steal?
Chief Brenner shifted his head from the screen regarding his new friend.
Nothing. Remember I mentioned weapons and debris? We were worried that you were connected with them. Now that I know you're not, well, I figured you could help.
Auric thought the translator had failed.
They demanded nothing. They left? Perhaps I misunderstood.
Chief Brenner just grinned.
They weren't expecting us to shoot back. By the time it was over, they didn't want anything ever again. That's why your welcome wasn't as warm as perhaps it should have been.
Forgive me. You destroyed it. How is that possible? Your generator's behind the technology compared to the... How is that possible? Your generator's behind in technology compared to the intact. Your generators are behind in technology compared to the intact.
Have you ever heard of a nuclear-pumped X-ray laser? Because they hadn't. We were collecting up the wreckage as you arrived. Ulrich understood the words, but even as an engineer, he couldn't figure out how they went together.
Perhaps I'd better go see my second. I'll meet you in the morning, Chief.
Looking forward to it. The chief went straight to the captain's office. You were right, sir. They had nothing to do with the attack. I dropped a few hints about what happened. I left her engineer trying to figure it out. He's a good one. Told me a hell of a lot about their capabilities. Pure civilian. I get to see their ship in the morning. Hold on, Chief. I practically bought Girl Scout cookies from the second scribe. I'm briefing Earth now. We will continue the welcome. Allow them access to everything. It makes no good. It makes no odds until we figure out. It makes no difference until we figure out why. It makes no difference until we figure out how their stuff works. The second scribe reported to the curator. The second scribe. The second scribe reported to the curator.
Captain was very helpful. The captain is very helpful. He explained the current political structure, gave us access to the world database, with his apologies for some of the contents. Apparently it is uncensored. We have full access to the planet, and he has designated our shuttle as Xeno 1, should we wish to land anywhere. My records cannot find a more open and comprehensive welcome.
The curator nodded. Yet you don't sound convinced. What's on your mind, second? The second fluttered in frustration, her crest rising and falling.
That's the problem. Who does that? Our own contact took nearly a generation before we opened our world, and we were careless. Have the humans no fear?
Ulrich had been listening, waiting to report.
They have reason. Before we arrived, they were attacked by an intact privateer. They must have followed our trail and jumped ahead. I didn't tell them the full story of what usually happens to a world that falls to the intact. They destroyed it. Then we interrupted them recovering the debris. Such a ship should destroy us.
Not a problem, Robert. I hope you have a fantastic sleep with wonderful dreams, and hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you for popping past. It is very much appreciated.
Them recovering the debris. Such a ship could destroy us with ease. They have the finest engineering skills I have ever seen. With the wreckage of that ship alone, they'll be able to... They'll be in the greater galaxy soon. They are not afraid because they never expect to lose. From what I can see, they're right.
The curator sank back into its bath.
Well, best ensure they join the community. We don't want them on the outside. You will prioritize engineering and design. Send them everything. Engineer Ulrich, you are now in charge of this contact. Send my regrets to the cultural analysis scholar. Tell me, did you discover why he was a problem?
The second nodded.
Yes, curator. Apparently they are afraid of spiders.
End of story. Pew, pew, pew. All right, less bright screen. Ooh.
Good morning, Lord Vulpix. I hope you are doing well. Bean juice is better than water 11 times out of 10.
It's a glorious day.
Fair enough, Lord, fair enough. Sometimes that's not a bad thing. Excitement isn't always good. Change isn't always good. I am going to be right back. I'm going to pump the music up a little bit. And I'll be back in 2 seconds. All right, back. Welcome, Adderworks. I hope you're doing well today. Turn the music down. There we go. Alrighty. Got 3 people on Twitch, awesome, and 14 people on YouTube. Welcome, 14 people on YouTube. Hope you're all doing well. Oh, coffee's so good. So there was a dreaded moment after my voice surgery. Well, 2 months of dreaded moment. I couldn't drink coffee. For some reason, the taste just changed and I couldn't stand it. So for 2 months, I had to drink tea. Thankfully, my body decided that that wasn't worth it, and we went back to coffee. But there were several tastes that I couldn't handle anymore. I mean, like, picked up weird tastes, which then evened out. One of them was Marmite. So, I mean, I eat Marmite. It's not a major thing, but I never think, oh my god, I could use some Marmite. But for 2 months after the voice op, Marmite. I craved Marmite. Which is weird. And I couldn't handle peanut butter and jam, but I wanted Marmite. Marmite has the most potent, well, one of the most potent tastes. Good morning, Zariah. Hope you're doing well. And the lazy comment. Hey, how you doing? Greetings and salutations. My pleasure, Zariah. My pleasure. Okay, shall we move on to the next story? The next one. Which is a sequel. Which I'm not actually going to do. We did the original. We won't do the sequel. Remove that one. That one. Like that. Okay. Things in the same universe I can live with, like direct sequels, they fall into a different thing. Not really. It's in South Africa, where I'm from. Marmite is perfectly normal. So, same as Bovril. Same similar thing. Bovril has bovine extract. Marmite doesn't, I don't think. And Vegemite doesn't. Vegemite's made from, which is what the Australians eat, yeast extract and the leftovers of beer making. So, similar but not. Very salty. Very salty. A little bit goes a long way. So, there's that. Olivia, thank you. I'm glad that you've caught us live. A good laugh at work will always disturb people, especially if they don't see the headphones and you're just sitting there and you just suddenly burst out laughing and then you just keep working. Don't say anything to anybody. That's how you get people to leave you alone. You don't scream at them, you don't shout at them. You just sit calmly and just randomly laugh, and then people leave you alone. Thank you, Lazy. It's very, well, I try to keep it as scheduled as I can. I mean, there is a budget of amount of words that I can narrate in any given day. This is even after the operation, even before the operation. So I have to work within the budget of words that I can do per day that doesn't damage my voice. Now, I can push past that a little bit and not damage my voice. It just means my voice will be a bit sore or tired or whatever. But I have to try manage it so I don't get vocal strain, but get the most work that I can do. If that makes any sense. Ooh. And as always, if you have any questions or anything you want to ask me or say, just send it. I'll see it and I'll respond if and when I get a chance. Don't feel like you're going to interrupt. Yeah, I can understand that, ABN. But it is what it is. Well, I stopped First Contact at episode 500, and the chapters were wildly fluctuating. So I was waiting to see what would happen with that, and then Raltz, the author, moved everything over to Amazon, and he entered into the narration program there, which gives it exclusivity. So I had to take my version down. So there's that. It's also why I've stopped Power Armor. It started off being about a 20-minute per chapter, which is fine. We can work with that. But then it's now up to like 35 minutes per chapter, which is a lot more work. But here's the kicker with the word budget. Every day is different. It's not like I can read 10,000 words and then that's that. If I sleep well and I'm hydrated and I'm feeding well, I can read X amount. If I don't sleep well, then it's not X amount. And if I'm not feeling well, it's not that amount. So every day is a different amount. And one day, what I can do in a day won't hurt me in any way. But if I try to do that the next day, it can. So we try and get it consistent. But again, some days it's just, it is what it is. Especially with my sinus problems. If I don't sleep well and I get clogged sinuses, the next day reading is not great. Yeah. I doth play games sometimes. Lord Volpex, those chapter breaks aren't in the halfway point. I checked. A lot of them are either a third of the way in or a third of the way out, so it's going to be inconsistent. And, just saying, cutting chapters in half is going to upset as many people as just not doing it. Because I've tried it before. With other IPs. And there is even some chapters that don't have any perspective breaks. So it's very inconsistent to where the perspective breaks are, so cutting it in half is just going to be an uphill battle, and is an additional work. So it's still more work. I have to read the story, then I have to read the story again, trying to figure out where the halfway point is, and then think about, is this okay to put a halfway point in here? Is this not? So it may not be more vocal work, but it is still more work. Yeah, lazy. Yeah, I mean, First Contact was great. I mean, I loved First Contact in the beginning. In the end, the chapters were getting massive and very difficult to follow the story because of the way that it was written. He's changed that when he's gone to Amazon. So now he's broken it up into story arcs where it's much more easy to follow. So you would have all the names have just gone. So you'd follow, for a book, one character. Then next book will be a different character in the same time. So it flows better. If you are looking for it on Amazon, it's called Behold Humanity! ! And he is writing a new series called The New Era. No, that's not him. The Noble Wars. He's still writing, although he did recently have surgery or something. I'm not entirely sure what. So his writing might stop for a while. Anyways, on to the recording. It is my pleasure, Lazy. My pleasure. Greetings, ladies and metal gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Re-TFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Deathworlder Perspective, written by Master Ficus. The Gautine were an adaptive species of nothing else. Their planet had a mild climate, abundant mineral wealth, low gravity, and hyperactive tectonic plates. Approximately one-third of their planet was a freshwater ocean, changing shape every few years. The shorelines were constantly hammered by tsunamis caused by endless underwater earthquakes. The land was scarred at the plate boundaries by escaping lava, and mountains dominated the landscape. At the center of every plate was a more even landscape, usually dominated by lakes. Plants in the mountains were mostly moss or fungus-based. In the fields were forests, grasslands, and crops, all with massive root systems. Small predators and herbivores were unique to each haven between the plates. The birds won. With birds one of the only exceptions. The Gautine were the other exception, resembling a cross between a mountain goat and an ape. They were fur-covered mammals with tough but semi-dexterous paws. They traveled between the plates in small herds, having exceptional balance in the mountains and smart enough to find the safest routes across the changing landscape that wouldn't burn their hardened paws. Travel between plates was necessary for replenishable grazing, mating, and sharing information between herds. As they advanced, the need to travel shifted from basic survival to trade and mating. Structures were designed to withstand the constantly shifting surface. Wars were fought between tribes. Tools and vehicles designed for moving mountains met this need. Communication towers on the peaks of shifting mountains were marvels of engineering. When the first aircraft was created, it awakened equal parts desire and fear of something previously unknown. Stillness. In the air, the Gautine couldn't feel the shifting of the planet, couldn't hear. Coffee's attacking back, and the boomer juice. Couldn't hear the falling of the rocks and boulders. They could relax their balance. They could relax their balance. This species united with its new goal to experience physical calm, to fly higher, to go to space. It took generations, but the first Gautine flew among the stars, if only for a few minutes. This only fueled their desire, and within 30 cycles they landed on one of the two moons. In 70 cycles, a colony was established on the same moon. Now they looked further. Now they looked farther. What else were they missing? Why couldn't they see anyone else out there? How far could they go? How fast? 450 cycles later, a prototype FTL engine was produced. All that was left was to test it. Status?
Car stable, engine warmed. Car stable, engine warmed, FTL pre-checks complete, cooling functioning, backups on standby. Life support steady, emergency rations and supplies verified, all hull penetration sealed. Bay doors locked. Verified communications to base, escort craft in short-range comms. All systems are running smoothly. Plotted course is clear of traffic. Sensors indicate empty space except for another phantom rock approximately 35,000 miles out. It's 10,000 miles from the first... It's 10,000 miles from the test pump. It's 10,000 miles from the test run path. Path forward is clear. The captain looked pleased. After all, this was a big moment for everyone. Conditions couldn't be better, and if anything short of catastrophic failure occurred, the escort ships could save everyone from life pods. The Phantom Rock was a little unsettling, but those things showed up on sensors from time to time.
No one's ever hit one, and they disappear after a few seconds. The common theory is faulty sensors or space dust.
Very well, let us be... regal voice. Very well, let us be a resounding success, or an experience to learn from, but do not let us be a failure.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Maneuvering, take us to cruising speed. Start the FTL engine when ready.
Aye, aye, Captain. The captain sat and fastened his harness. As he did, the As did the rest of the small crew. Excitement, fear, joy, curiosity, but most of all anticipation filled the crew. The ship began to accelerate. The escort ships followed at a distance. The ship attained cruising speed. The captain gripped the arms of his chair and leaned forward, waiting for the experimental engine to take over. He fought the urge to give the order. This was maneuvering's time for glory. They were professionals, taking every safety precaution, and he wouldn't rush them. Con, maneuvering, answering cruising speed, starting the FTL engine. Maneuvering Kong, aye. The hull shook as the FTL matched cruising speed, and the cruising engine was secured. The crew was pushed into their seats, and the stars seemed to stretch into oval shapes. Navigation equipment began to freeze with a drastic change in information. Captain, they just entered FTL. No sign of damage. Escorts are following at subspeeds.
Understand all. Maintain cloak. Follow them at their destination. Follow them to their destination. Inform the ambassador. Place boarding crew on standby.
Aye, aye, Captain. Captain, navigation equipment is struggling with FTL travel as expected. At current estimated speed, we should reach the target location in 15 seconds.
Very well, Nav.
The navigation officer was yelling as if the FTL speed was deafening, when in fact the engine noise itself was the only audible indication that it was functioning, and even that wasn't very loud. The captain didn't blame him, though. The entire control room was tense. Maneuvering, Con. Take us off FTL engine. Answer all stop. All stop, Con. Maneuvering, aye. The engine noise faded to silence, then returned at half the intensity, now slowing the ship. Navigation equipment began to return as the ship excited. Navigation equipment began to return as the ship exited FTL. The FTL engine then secured, followed by the cruising engine slowing the ship to a stop. Con, maneuvering. The FTL engine is secured, answering all stop. Maneuvering Con, aye. The captain released his harness and stood up, followed by the crew releasing their own harnesses.
Status report.
Core stable and returning to lower power level. Engine is warmed. FTL engine is secured and indicating no faults. Knife support is unaffected. Hull maintained integrity. All hatches, bays, and seals remained airtight.
Communications with base and escorts lost due to range.
Equipment is fully functional. No damage.
Navigation equipment restored.
We overshot our target by 80,000 miles. Steering during FTL was unresponsive. It will take approximately 20 hours for the receiving escorts to reach us, and a 16-day return trip if we use the cruising engine.
Understand all. Navigation inform me when contact is established with escorts. Maneuvering, cool the FTL and prepare it for removal and return for inspection. Maintain the cruising engine warm. Supply, coordinate meals and necessities for the 2-week return trip. Make something nice for tonight's celebration.
Captain, Phantom Rock...
Captain, Phantom Rock 600 meters directly ahead and closing.
The captain nearly fell over in shock. This is the closest a Phantom Rock has ever been to a spacecraft. The closest reported was 4,000 meters. Captain, the rock is growing? The captain stopped seconds from ordering evasive maneuvers. This object was responding to them. How? Why now? 500 meters. It's still growing slightly, maybe 70,000 tons of iron or something lighter. 400 meters. It stopped growing, approximately 100,000 tons of metal. It's shaped. Instruments say the rock has straight edges. 300 meters. It stopped approaching, focusing the camera and projecting the image on the main screen now. A massive hulk of flattened metal filled the screen. It was shaped like two triangles on top of each other, with flat portion in the middle, housing several bay doors and large weapons. Alien writing marked the side, and drawing of a female bipedal mammal holding what appeared to be a weapon was adorned behind it. "That's a ship! That's an alien ship!" the captain finally managed. The entire control room was silent. "All right, pilot, no showing off. They're under a lot of stress right now, and we don't want to startle them into doing anything foolish." The pilot didn't bother to tell the ambassador to go feck himself. This was his shuttle. He's flown it countless times without some smooth talker telling him how to do his job. And he won't start now. The shuttle bay doors opened, and the boarding shuttle departed from the Navy cruiser. The pilot was now white-knuckling the controls in a silent rage. But the ambassador didn't notice. He was concentrating on the mission. This was his first time introducing a pre-contact species to the universe, and he didn't want to mess it up. "Captain, a bay is opening." "Captain, a bay is opening." The alien ship opened a bay door and released a single shuttle, box-like and adorning weapons on the sides, top and bottom. "Stay calm, everyone. The main ship's guns aren't pointed at us. We don't know what they want." The captain let out a curse under his breath. Even if they did mean to harm his crew, there was nothing they could do about it. There wasn't a single weapon on board or mounted to the ship. Running was worthless at close range, and the escorts couldn't scratch this thing, even if they weren't over 120,000 miles away. "Navigation sent a message to the escorts explaining the situation." "Already done, sir. If this is first contact, I don't want it to be done through a camera. Open the viewing shutter." "Aye, aye, sir." The shuttle. As the shuttle approached, a thick shutter at the nose of the alien ship slid to the side to reveal a thick glass window and a control room inhabited by the native species humans had been monitoring. Humans had been monitoring for the last 300 years. "Drive carefully, though. They're watching us. Don't want them thinking that you can't fly." That's all it took. The pilot pressed the impact warning button, a common warning for his crew to stay strapped in place. Then the shuttle veered away from the nose of the ship and accelerated. The pilot was grinning and giddy as the ambassador panicked and begged in the passenger seat. Meanwhile, the shuttle was passing within a few feet of the alien ship. Came back around to do it again. Came back around to do it back to front, and ended with a little spin just in front of the nose. The pilot stopped and leveled the shuttle, turned off the impact warning, and turned to face his shaking passenger. Grin still on his face. "Don't want them thinking I can't fly, sir." The ambassador had no response. He was focused on getting his breathing back under the control. "All right, boys, we're here. Get out of there and make our power up. All right, boys, we're here. Get out there and make your parents proud." With that radio transmission, the back of the shuttle opened, and two sailors in suits left the shuttle with a peculiar item in their possession. "What was that? A show of force?" "No, Nav. I believe it was a greeting." The captain moved in silence as his navigation and supply officer were debating the erratic shuttle movements. He stopped just in front of the viewing window, watching the shuttle open, and two beings exited in suits. The room once again grew silent as they watched these two suits bring a thin metal sheet closer to them. When they landed on the viewing window, everyone but the captain jumped back. Then they held the metal directly in front of it. Why did they look so familiar? "Captain, sir, is that what I think it is?"
Fair enough. A scrin is definitely a shit-eating grin. That works. It is law now.
"What do you think it is?" The captain was genuinely curious. The navigation operator speaking was young and came up from a tribe with a jet-black fur, an adaptation from living primarily in the charred mountains between plates. Not a genetic adaptation, but cultural, achieved with dyes. The operator was usually quite reserved and had observed climbing skills due to his tribe. but always hid his more educated and, well, nerdy behavior from his crew and family. The captain knew this and decided to play along as if he believed him, just as the rest of the crew did. However, now his operator's thirst for random facts may prove advantageous. Captain, sir, I think that's a launched helix. The captain's eyes widened as he realized he was right. Hundreds of years ago, satellites were launched in all directions with wideband communications, always broadcasting, and a sheet of engraved metal, all meant for contacting intelligent life. Many of them have gone dark over the decades, and it looks like these aliens have captured one. Captain, sir, I'm picking up a low-frequency broadcast from the shuttle. It has directional pattern straight at us. I believe it's audio. Play it over the 1MC. Find me a way to return the signal. Aye, aye, Captain. A few seconds of feedback over the 1MC makes the entire crew cringe for a few seconds, followed by a few seconds of static noise. Then a robotic voice echoes throughout the silent ship. Greetings, experimental ship of the Guillotine. Congratulations on achieving faster-than-light travel. We've been waiting for you to make the jump ever since we found your beacon in the dark, and watched with anticipation as you developed a colony on your moon. If you can hear this message, wave back to the sailors outside your ship. As the transmission ended, the two suits started to move their arms back and forth at him. The captain stood frozen for a moment before returning the foreign gesture. The suit stopped, and one clenched his fist with his thumb pointed up. The captain was not sure what he expected alien life to be like, but with the vastly different ships, gestures, and flying styles, it took a lot of effort just to keep calm. The transmission then continued. We are the human race, and you are not alone. We will watch and protect you as needed, and allow you to continue to develop your own technology just as we did. We have so much more to discuss. We'll follow you back to your world to get introduced properly. End of story. Up-doot-doot-doot. Definitely up-doot. Always up-doot. Bad news, chat. My coffee's finished. Good news, chat. I have another boomer juice. I am not an addict. I am not an addict. I am not an addict. Cheers, Phoenix. Thank you for popping past. It is very much appreciated. That's not what I wanted. And same to you, Phoenix. Take well and have care. Be fun and all the other stuff. It is awesome. Awesome, I tell you. Yes, overacting. They say that there is no kill like overkill. There is no acting like overacting. I don't think it works that way, but I'll pretend it does. Ooh, we got 21 people. Hello, people. Welcome. If you came in mid-story, I apologize, but yes, I'm working on the stories for the main channel. If you have any questions, drop them. I will answer. Well, I'll answer where appropriate. I'm not going to answer every question. Excuse me. The boomer juice is fighting back. A very weird aftertaste of coffee plus green sugar-free monster. That's an interesting question, Lazy.
I have no idea. It could just be that humanity's cloaking tech wasn't 100%. Or it could be just because of where they tech came from. They could just detect it. Who knows? Overacting does make the best memes. Doesn't make the best stories, though. So here's a thing with the Retifos, just randomly. A lot of, oh, not a lot. There's a good amount that when I narrated them the first time around, it was a standalone story, just a one shot. And then in the years since I narrated it, they've released more stories and have made it a series. My pleasure, Lazy. I hope you have a fantastic sleeps with great dreams of whatever it is that makes you happy. Nice and restful, and you wake up tomorrow fully rested and ready to take on a new day or something like that. I'm an insomniac. I don't know how this works. Sleep and I are old enemies. I've done that too, Marcus. I've done that too. You walk away, you come back hoping for coffee, and you're like, no. And then you sit there and you just watch the drips. Takes about 10 times as long. At that point, I normally just put my cup in, let it drip into the cup, and then still takes forever. I don't actually drink a lot of filter coffee. I'm the only person that drinks coffee, really, in the house. So if I make filter coffee, I have to drink an entire pot, which isn't necessarily bad, but leaving it on the warming tray just burns it. I'm kind of interested in those Nespresso machines with the little cartridges, but I don't know how they work out cost-wise. Yeah, very much, Jana. Very much. No! You betrayed me! Cool. I've tried many things. I've yet to crack the code. So, 16 years old, I started with my insomnia, and it's been a thing since then. So, what's that, 26 years? 26 years. What I do know is if I have a clock in my room, one of the bedside clocks that show you the time in LEDs, my insomnia gets worse because I focus on the clock, and then I just get pissed off because I'm not falling asleep. So there's no clocks in my bedroom at all. And then I'm also on sleeping pills. Even with sleeping pills, it still takes me a couple of hours to fall asleep. I have moved country. We arrived in Portugal in January, and yeah, been building the studio up, been getting everything going again, trying to make a house a home, all that stuff. So Only sort of recently have things calmed down so that I can start streaming again. But yeah, in a new country, in a new continent. Exciting stuff. That's fair, Marcus. And the hammer option does work. We're doing around 200. But yeah, I mean, the new country thing, we're having a teeny bit of problems. It's not our problem specifically. Yeah, very stable power. Stable power, stable electricity. We can walk from here to there without too much worry. So the Department of Immigration, just before we started our process, the government dismantled the old Department of Immigration and created a new Department of Immigration from scratch. And it's been a total cock-up of note. So we have our visas, and then we need to do our residency. And this is the part that's a cock-up. Currently, the department is being sued by many people because it's taking so long. So that's the only kind of iffy thing at the moment. But the lawyer says this is fine. We shouldn't worry about it too much. It's not great, but it is, we can work around it. So yeah. But yeah, it's night and day compared to where we were. Yeah. Yep. There's a phrase that has always stuck with me since I was a kid. And the grass is always greener on the other side is the phrase. But the second part, which nobody says out loud, is because there's just more bullshit there. That's why it's greener. So, yeah, it's government's doing what government does, which is messing around, all government departments. But we'll sort it all out. I think that's like the only major step we're waiting for right now. Or it's fake. Fake is also an option, which means that it is 100% bullshit. Alrighty, on to story number next. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of ReTFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Standard Regulation, written by Benny Master. Ricky took the shot across the medium-sized office into the waste bin. The crumpled-up piece of paper conked off the side of the bin and fell to the floor. Nailed it! Ricky stood at one of the 4 workstations in the airy room. It was bright and cheery, quite against the common idea of government workspace. But then again, it technically wasn't government. It was only one of 4 main governing branches that balanced one another while abiding by the higher, more vague rules
that the majority of advanced intelligent species had agreed upon. Even if it was explained on paper, it was a hot mess, but it worked. For now.
Wasted energy, Ricky. Walk, drop, efficient.
Her voice was dull and droning, but curt with no give. That was Golam, his manager, one of the Kazim that had eaten the human systems. That was Curt with no give. That was Golem, his manager, one of the Kazim that had beaten the human systems into place. When humanity had made contact with the heavens, the Kazim had been waiting like a nun with a switch to trim off the fat of the governing bodies, and no amount of red tape could stop them. It had been a hectic 20-something years, but what remained was more reminiscent of a racing pit crew than a department of licensing. If things needed to happen, they happened, and fast. Strict regulations were imposed on nepotistic habits, while false advertising and advertisements in general were burned at the stake. Humanity's government, stripped of fat and complacency, now ran with an efficiency of energy that would arouse jealousy in the engineers of the first satellites. It worked so well that Ricky was almost bored. He got up, strode over to the bin, and put the crumpled ball inside. He got up, strode over to the bin, and put the crumpled ball inside before heading back to his seat. Golam tracked his motions with slow eyes, never moving so much as a muscle. The Kazim waited until Ricky was back at his workstation to admonish him again.
Wasted energy, Ricky.
So you keep telling me, boss. You should see me play basketball. You'd have a stroke.
Limited energy. Conserve, live long, centuries.
And again, that's not how it works with us. I got maybe another 80 years before I keel over, and I'm not going to spend it like a sloth. Good morning, James. I hope you're doing well. His permit. His description was apt. Golem reached across his desk for another one of the permit applications with a curious slowness of movement that could be compared to a sloth. The paper crinkled in the stiff digits, and his hand... The paper crinkled in the stiff digits of his hand as he pulled it back towards him. Paper they'd only... Paper they'd been allowed to keep. It wasn't the same kind as it had been back on Earth. That stuff was collectible at this point, but it was still paper, pulped and pressed from what was apparently the optimal fiber available for its production. The Kazim didn't mess around. Everything was optimized and built to last. Ricky flipped through a few papers on his desk before settling on one to handle. Suddenly, a loud thump issued from outside the workspace, with a loud roar following. Their workstations trembled as an enormous creature jammed itself into the room, huge and scaled and bearing plenty of teeth in its mouth. Ricky sighed. "I am very upset," issued the translation in his head, several times shorter than the verbal stream that spewed from the creature's mouth. Ricky wondered how accurately the translator could handle Menish, profanity, and...
Hello? 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 Anybody there?
Test. Don't know what happened there. I think it was the VPN. All missing. Oh, right. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome back to this cock-up of a stream. It is much appreciated that the technical difficulties happen in the middle rather than the beginning, so we can sort them out and just have a nice stream. All right. Everybody back. We got most people. Okay. It's amazing that the tolerance between YouTube and Twitch. Twitch, when it disconnects like that, creates a new stream almost instantly. But YouTube has like a minute, I think. If you reconnect, it will just continue the stream. Which is cool. Anyways, back to our Chinese dragon. Menish physiology was huge, serpentine, and often compared to Chinese dragon or mythical lamia. Their planet had a lower gravity yield and was covered mostly in swamps, which led to their great size.
Twitch should be up again. I think. Yes. It is back. Okay.
Ricky took a step towards it. You are upset. My name is Ricky, and I'm here to help. What is your name? Golem spoke again, cut and curt. Hermit. The big Medusa-like creature squirmed. Lock Harvester Christa. I filed a complaint in the main office, and it will take too long to go through. A day is too long? The conversion festival is in a half a cycle, and I cannot be tardy. I am upset. Ricky nodded. You are trying to get to the Grubvorman festival within a half cycle.
A quarter of one, if possible.
A quarter of one, if possible.
If possible. What is the issue, Westmander? What is...
If possible. So what is the issue, Vestema?
Vestema.
If possible. So what is the issue, Vestema? If possible. What is the issue, Vestema? Why are you upset? The massive creature fell silent, body squeezed within the doorway. The charter vessel is too small. I cannot fit inside. Ricky looked to Gollum, who did nothing. He turned back to Vestema. That's fixable. I can charter one of the local cargo vessels to take you. It will be ready in...
A cargo vessel? A cargo vessel.
Yeah, I have no idea. I think it's the VPN.
A cargo vessel? Have you no properly sized vessels? Not these tiny crap boxes you claim are livable? I've been eating my hotel for 2 cycles, now waiting for these accommodations. We do not have any Manish-compatible civilian vessels at the moment. We can charter a cargo vessel, or you can take a small one. Vestema thrashed around a bit in frustration, becoming even more wedged in the doorway. Why is everything so small? There are Conrans, Turvians, and May, yet still everything is puny.
Normative average,
Golem said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. What? What did you call me, you? Ricky quickly placed his body between the two. What the good Kazim said is that there is an average size, and our facilities reflect the needs of those who use them. Average? I am below average size, and you still can't. Numbers, planets. Numbers, planets. If everything exists on a bell curve, then the standard planet is at the center, which is why we called it the standard, yes? Vestema grumbled, which came through as his translator as an affirmation. Translator as an affirmative. Then the standard planet size. Then the standard planet size on average, and we'll have... Then the standard planet size on average, and with all things being equal, will eventually produce a standard size being. Would this be correct? Yes. Ricky motioned to the doorway, some 4 meters high. Therefore, the majority of buildings, civilian housing units, and chartered transport vessels are built to accommodate those standard sizes. Does that make sense? The men were silent for a moment. What harm would it do to have surplus of large vessels? None, if I'm honest. But the larger species don't tend to travel as much for some reason. It couldn't possibly be due to the discomfort and lack of amenities, could it? A jab took him off guard. Ricky paused. Vestema had him there. Okay, maybe. Could be. Tell you what, if you can handle riding in that cargo vessel, I'll see if I can add another 2 civilian transport vessels to each sector's fleet. How does that sound? Good. I am no longer upset. I'm glad. I'll make the arrangements now. You'll receive the details shortly. Vestima grumbled, then shifted a bit in the door. Its body had the girth of a missile and was wrapped in tight coils within the door frame. Ricky and Golem watched in silence as the large creature squirmed and shifted. Vestima, are you all right? I'm stuck. Golem slowly rose and walked ponderously over to the door frame. It took him at least 3 minutes, all while Ricky stared aghast. This was the first time in 4 years he'd seen Kazim stand up from its desk. It even ate and slept there. With a sudden burst, Kazim rammed its bulky body against one of the men's coils, and they both burst from the doorway to fall in the hall. Vestima wriggled and unlooped Golem and... hall. Vestima wriggled and unlooped Golem from its coils. Ricky gawked, his eyes wide. My gratitude, Kazim. Farewell. The huge serpentine creature wound its way from the hall and back to the civilian area, leaving Ricky bent over Golem, helping him up. Golem, are you crazy? What was that?
Energy, Ricky. Well spent. The Kazim shrugged him off and began to arduous trek back to his desk. Ricky shook his head and returned to his workstation, where he promptly filed the appropriate digital forms and paper invoices, and sent them all out to the Vestima. And sent them out so that Vestima could make it back to its festival. Then he finished the form that he'd previously been working on and crumpled it up in the now redundant invoice into a ball. Am I clear to requisition these 2 civilian Leviathan transport vessels? Golem answered from where he was, still several feet from his workstation. 3. Save energy in future.
He nodded, then turned to the corner of the room. Ricky took the shot across the room towards the wastebin, and the crumpled piece of paper went right in. He pumped his fist. Yeah! Nothing but net, baby!
Efficient, Ricky.
End of story. Serendipitous is definitely a thing. Yeah. Sometimes it is mundane that runs the universe. I'm not even particularly tall, and there are times that is uncomfortable. The flight here was... Ugh. I'm only 6'1", but that's still enough to be wedged into some places. I shudder to think what it's like to be 6'6", or up, 6'5", hell. I used to have a joke where it was shorter people would complain about my height. I'm like, yeah, you don't know the joy of walking into a clothesline and getting it into your throat or face. Ouch. I mean, at least it's... I knew a guy, well, briefly, a friend of a friend who was 6'9". Oh.
I do not envy him. Oh, that's the wrong one. Fair enough, James. It just would have been a really long walk from South Africa to Portugal. Joke. Joke. Oh, joke. Yeah. It was unpleasant. What was it? 19? 21 hours of flights? I was so uncomfortable I couldn't even fall asleep. But we made it, yeah. That's the main thing. Not happy. The cats are okay. The dog didn't like it. Yeah, he's changed for the worse, I think, since the move. Very clingy, very skittish. The one cat, the old cat, the deaf one, could not give a single feck. It just continued on where it left off. It hit save and then continue when it arrived here. Other cats took a couple days. It was very, very weird for a couple days, and then it was fine. But the dog, even 2 months later, it still won't leave my wife alone. Beforehand, it just would do its own thing, but now it follows my wife everywhere. He's a lot more skittish, a lot more whiny than he used to be. But yeah, they've been for their shots on this side, which is good. Alrighty, I'm just going to take a 2-second break. I'll be right back. And back. I've never gone skydiving. Maybe one day. I did do the world's longest zip line at one point. That was awesome. And the world's fastest zip line at one point. The fastest one was interesting. It was 2 kilometers down a mountain, and you got up to, I think it was 140 kilometers an hour. It was awesome. Especially because I went past, there was a main road on the one side. And you start off and there's a car, like, ahead of you, and it's driving. And then you catch up to the car, and then you go past the car. That doesn't sound fun, James. And then the world's longest one at the time was through like a nature reserve. So you started up on top of a mountain and you went from station to station through this reserve that was going down a mountain. I think the whole thing was 12 or 13 kilometers. I can't remember the exact length. But that was pretty cool. No, they use a full body harness. So the fastest one is a body harness that you lie on and you face forward. So you're in an aerodynamic shape. And it's basically a body suit that you lie on, and then they strap you in with a helmet, which I thought was funny. So you can get the speed. And then the world's longest one was also a harness, full body harness, but it clicks here in the chest. So that, and you go slow, well, relatively slow. I think the longest section of the was a kilometer. Yeah, Superman style. But my favorite part of the world's the longest one, was near the end. They take you over this massive river, and they take you about this far. Well, my feet were dipping into the water as I was flying over it. It was pretty cool. I had to lift my legs up so that I didn't slow myself down and have to leopard crawl back or forward. But that was pretty cool. I mean, there was parts where you're going through trees, so they've cut a hole, and you're just going through trees on both sides. Pretty picturesque. Fair enough, Marcus. I mean, I can understand the difference between the civilian and military. But maybe one day I'll go skydiving. It is on my bucket list. I've just been doing other stuff. Okay. Oh. Here you go. We shall move on to the next story. I haven't looked at the price in years, but yeah, it was expensive. Especially if you got to do a tandem. Because it's nice with a tandem, you don't have to do as much prep work. You can just go, spend a day, and get it done. When I was checking, it was for non-tandem, it was like a month or 2 months of every weekend going and getting stuff done and training. And then they would allow you. Or you could just go one day and do a tandem. From when I was there, or when I was looking for my dad for his 50th birthday, is both of us are quite large, both tall and in girth. And none of their, what are they called, trainers, were big enough to hold us. So we couldn't do it. Ooh, excuse me. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called The Voices of Old, written by Mac Dye. I've done rappelling as well. Not massive rappelling, but I was doing rock climbing at one point, like indoor rock climbing, before bouldering was a thing, so everything was on belay. Well, that's pretty fun. Yeah, I mean, you have to, I would imagine so, Postmatic, that if you have been trained in some other way, you wouldn't need to do that, but I haven't, so it was going to be a big thing. Got off work early today. Wanted to... No, this is an author note. There was a moment in their prehistory that had been long debated and speculated in many long centuries that followed. A parable in holy books and a stellar event in the rare tomes of science that existed in that distant, simpler time. Of great lights in the night sky, as if the stars had grown restless. For many nights, the stars spun and flashed and vanished in the night sky. To some observers, it was seen as an end of times, or as a sign of great events to come. It was seen as an end of times, or as a sign of a great event to come. To others, it was seen as an unknowable stellar event, perhaps a meteor shower, or something similar. Something had fallen to earth. A great spire that had crashed down into the Mother Spine Mountains, a massive range of towering stone. The air at their height was too thin to breathe, the cold so deep that it could strike an unprepared explorer down in moments. And a sickness that robbed the strength of those afflicted, burned their skin, and showed the festering sores or demonic growths. In the holy tomes, they all agreed. The mountains were cursed. What had fallen from the sky would seep into the mother's blood and kill them all in time. None were to journey there. And in the tomes of science, it was agreed what had fallen there was a dangerous and deadly, bearer of plague and worse, some unknowable and invisible fire that killed any who sought out the fallen spire. But in time, memory faded, and most forgot. The knowledge to say, forgot. The knowledge to stay away from the mountains remained, though, as every generation or two a party would try, and sometimes a lone survivor would emerge only to give warning and admit failure to find the spire, then die. Memory of the spire's Memory of the spire's fallback. Memory of the spire's fall faded. Knowledge of the dangers of the Mother Spine Mountains became commonplace. It was simply a fact of reality. You did not go there. It was dangerous, and so no one questioned it any longer. Time passed, and science advanced. The first telescopes were too weak to really see what was beyond the moons, a blurry image of another celestial body. Time passed, and science advanced. The first telescopes were too weak to really see what was beyond the moons and blurry images of other celestial bodies. But with those first steps into peering into the endless skies, their curiosity grew. In time, better glass, better lenses, better telescopes,
Their moons were seen in detail, mapped painstakingly, speculation of what might live there among the craters and scars and barren fields of stone. Their nearest celestial neighbor came next, and then the fields, broad expanses of debris that drifted between their sixth and seventh planet. A mystery, as was everything amongst the stars, one to be solved. Society advanced, wars were fought, kingdoms fell in rows, religions grew, and still the fallen spire was forgotten. Knowledge of space and the planets continued to grow. It became commonplace. 7 planets in the solar system. Their world revolved around the sun, the center of their system. That had led to religious uprising and conflict. But over time, even the temples bowed and accepted that it was true. The field drifted between the 6th and 7th world. It was known reality, and so was no longer questioned. And society advanced, technology and innovation. The printing press led to the possibility of education to the masses, which brought more innovation, more advancement. Electricity was discovered, the theory of radio communication was broached, analyzed, proven, and the first true working radios were produced. And with them, the signals were discovered. Their presence threw all theory of the presence of naturally occurring radio noise on its head. These sounds repeated, patterns were observed, and the world fell silent for a moment. All war, all conflict ceased. All the temples and churches held their breath. The voices, as they came to be known, sparked a new era of conflict and unrest. Religion clashed with science. The voices were Religion crashed with science. The voices were messages from the gods, the spirits, the dead. The voices were from another world, another star, the past. Both were wrong, yet so close to the truth. Governments collapsed, religions failed. Things quieted again, as the voices didn't change. The same unknowable patterns, the same strange sounds. And so they became commonplace, accepted, and forgotten. And then the discovery of radiation poisoning came, and with it a realization of the Mother's Spine Mountains. More advancements, better telescopes, better radios, advances of mathematics that led to better understanding of the voices, better production, better chemistry, which led to the advancements in materials. The first expedition into the Mother's Spine Mountains came the same year as the first radio telescope. It was already known that there were hundreds, maybe thousands of the voices. It had been discovered they all came from one direction, the fields. The first expedition into the Mother's Spine Mountain returned, a lone survivor. They had worn the best that they could be produced. A lone survivor. They had worn the best that could be produced, but had realized too late how much radiation the Mother's Spine Mountains contained. A lone survivor, a solitary artifact, and a grainy photograph of the spire. The spire, the stellar event that had been forgotten, referenced in only the oldest of holy books, or the earliest of tomes of logic and science. Even those, of course, were steeped in opinion and personal belief of the authors. An age before scientific theory was well understood or strictly enforced as it were today. The discovery did not bring a fresh surge of violence or religious upheaval. An understanding had begun to dawn on the people that there was someone else out there. It didn't mean the gods and spirits and such didn't exist. It just meant that they had been blessed. That they had blessed the stars with other children, distant brothers and sisters. But the trail to them would be hard. The deaths of the first expedition were met with praise of their bravery and sacrifice. The first image of the spire spread around the world with the first live television transmission the world saw. The voices grew clearer with the first radio telescope. Thousands of voices, echoes of long dead, messages from the past. Someone, somewhere, surely found the morbid humor in that realization that the wars and conflicts and hysteria had been fueled by both sides arguing the same point. But still, their words were unknowable. Fight. True fight. Flight. True, powered flight. There could only be one destination for the first trial. A question that could only be answered from the sky. But the mother's spine was a dangerous, unforgiving place. An obstacle put forward by the gods and spirits to make the puzzle one that only a people unified to a single cause could surmount. People the world over hung on every word of the brave pilot that flew to the spire. The winds were rough, violent, alive. The view was breathtaking. None had seen the mother's spine from such an angle. From above, they were beautiful. Beautiful. The spire, seen from above, it rested against the slope of a towering mountain, its face scarred and torn from the spire's fall centuries before. Smoke still rose from the metal construct. Not smoke, heat. Such heat that it could be seen from above, that where the cold mountain winds pushed it, there was no snow. Those winds were strong, though, alive, angry, and the first plane struggled. The pilots spoke still. The barely heard flash and whir of the co-pilot's camera, barely heard over the wind. They struggled, they turned back towards home. But the gods and spirits knew the people were not ready yet, had not passed the test that they would need to understand the voices. Final messages from the pilots. The plane was damaged, dying. Wishes to loved ones that would survive them, that they had no regrets. Do not mourn us. Silence. And the world was silent again. Great masses held at temples and churches, governments announced official days of remembrance. And in time, everyone moved on. A generation passed. The spire was now known. The spire was known now, seen. Photographs, moving pictures, better planes were built, sent. More was learned, realizations made. The voices were the ghosts of ancient radio transmissions. The signals were garbled and corrupted, but something was still sending them. A new observatory, a more powerful telescope. The fields were seen clearly for the first time. More spires, drifting in the void of space. Different shapes, some smaller, many larger. The fields were a field of debris. They carried the ghosts that sent the voices. A truth confirmed. The people were not alone. There were, or had been, others. So close. But something had happened. The voices surely held that secret. Surely the spirits of the dead were offering them truths and understanding of the universe, of the story of the fields, of the spire. More advances. Science led to electronics, led to computers. Flight led to rockets, led to the first satellites. Computers led to programming, led to 3 seconds of audio. The first voice heard, the first words translated. God, help us. Silence again. 3 words, a different language, static, incomplete, and suddenly a new argument among the people. To which of the gods did that voice plead? Not why did they plead. Sorrow for the pain in those words was overlooked by all but the philosophers. Some heard them and, despite the different language, understood the meaning. They were spoken in terror, not sorrow. But that truth which philosophers and poets spoke was missed in the arguments. In the war that followed, started with religious unrest, which spurred public unrest, which spurred conflict and doubt, which led to war. Something that, for a time, had been forgotten, but discovered again. But technology had advanced since the last war. Some countries realized this, planned for it. Some held to old traditions. The war was brutal and long, but as with all wars, it ended. Maps were redrawn, and science had advanced again, leaps and bounds. The cauldron of war had summoned forth all sorts of new tools. Tools that were again turned towards a unified cause, the fields, the spire, the voices. A new expedition, better protective gear, vehicles that could traverse the mother's spine, aircraft that could battle the winds, that could land at the spire. Better computers, better receivers that could find and begin piercing through. That could find and begin piecing together the voices. More messages, more spoken words from long ago. There were two different languages, two different types of transmission from the fields. Debate, uncertainty, realization. Two races, a battle. There was, selfishly, a moment of relief amongst the people with that revelation. A moment of relief among the people with that realization. The horrors and mistakes of their past were not theirs alone. Others had known war, had made those mistakes. A moment of guilt, then grief, followed for many. More advances. The first probes to their moon. More learned of the rigors of space travel. A truer understanding of the distances. A camp built into the living stone of the mother's spine to shield the researchers, the scientists, the workers that were beginning to learn the secrets of the spire. The first living person in space. More followed. And then a probe sent towards the field to get a closer look, to learn more. Advances gleaned from the spire, advances made to hear the voices, to see those who had spoken so long ago. The probe was blessed by representatives of every religion the people worshipped. They carried within it equipment made all over the world from every nation. A single, unified effort to learn more of those that had come to their system so long ago. The first images were finally pieced together. The first glimpses of one source of the voices. Shock. Silence. The single stilled image offered a glimpse of a face, a body. 2 arms. 2 legs, not so different in that respect. It wore an unarmored... It wore an armored suit so similar to what their first adventurers who had reached orbit. Better. Slimmer, certainly. But the same concept. Fire, smoke. The image had been a single frame from a video transmission. The face was wounded, burned, the experts said. But the eyes were clear. Everything of the image was blurred with motion. But the eyes, fixed, staring at the viewer, as if that long-dead someone could see the people. 2 eyes, less than the people, but the emotion there was plain to see, even on so alien a face. Resigned, yet defiant. That someone knew death was coming for them, yet had struggled on. What happened to that one alien? What happened to them all, friend or foe? What gods did they worship? What beliefs did they hold? Debate, peaceful, thoughtful. The philosophers were heard, not the dissenters. Poets and artists were looked to, religious leaders and scientists both could agree. Governments ratified new budgets, new grand plans and goals, hand in hand with other countries. The first crewed mission to their nearest moon, to the next, more secrets gleaned from the spire, more images of the fields, of the ruined spires, ships, dozens, hundreds, some long and slender, much like the creatures of the seas and rivers, but with a predatory air. Sleek design, sloped hulls, they seemed powerful in appearance, bold, advanced. The first images of them, learned, proven by the remains found aboard the spire. Others spheres, Others, spheres or oblong orbs, dark of color, rough of edges, battle damage or design. They seemed crude, brutal in appearance. Little was known of those ones yet. Their transmissions were only in text, no audio, no video. The messages were simple yet elusive for so long. The messages were thought to be a programming language, of machinery speaking to other machinery, not of the living things. Not of living things. Advancement, exploration, understanding, spurred on by curiosity, by the ever-elusive mystery that had started with an unknowable event early in their history. The spire yielded its secrets in bits and pieces. The mystery was still so far beyond the people. Those that had created the dead craft could control gravity itself, could manipulate universal constants in ways that they could not understand. Nuclear fusion was learned, harnessed, then solar, both learned from the spire. They realized the damage pollution could cause. Another lesson from the spire. From the wasteland it had created in the mother's spine, from the radiation still pouring from its dead engines. Time passed, and again it all became known, commonplace, and the wonder of it all slowly faded. More images were assembled from the voices. The transmissions were echoes trapped within the fields. But bits and pieces escaped and were heard, recorded. A puzzle of unknown size and shape, of depth, of such complexity that dozens of nations still poured so much into the great receiver arrays and the teams that had been working since the earliest days of radio. Loudering, multiple locks starboard. Been boarded, aft batteries overrun, Marines. The Ark! Amaterasu is laying to, moving to. We're hit, weapons down, power to engines, prepare to ram. God help us. Engineering has been... How did they find us? Not again. Hundreds of voices, messages, images of the spire, great beams of light flashing from their flanks into the others. Spires were torn apart in a cold void of space. They and the others collided, massive ships vanishing in orbs of heat and debris. It took years for the probe to reach the fields. As it neared, its cameras and transmitters activated. The first images, the first streams of the voices, clearer, more complete. A realization that something of the magnetic fields of their moons had been degrading in the transmissions further. There was a message being sent to them. Something in the fields was still transmitting a complete recording of the events that had transpired there. But it was too much. The probe fell silent, overloaded. So another was prepared and sent. More advancement. The first crude orbital constructs. The first crude orbital constructs. Science began to move forward in leaps and bounds as the spire gave up its secrets more readily. And when that first probe cleared the field that had hidden the truth from them for so long, the message was received. We are sorry. If you hear this, please forgive us. Silence. What great transgression had the visitors wrought upon the people they had never gotten to meet? Were the last of humanity. Our enemy has followed us here to your home system. We had hoped to escape them. We did not know your world held life when we first chose it. When we came here with our last Ark ship, our last fleet. The speaker was male, a human. He bore the uniform and insignia of an admiral. He was old. We'll change that. We had hoped to escape them. Our enemy... were the last of humanity. Our enemy has followed us here, to your home system. We had hoped to escape them. We did not know your world held life when we first chose it. When we first came here... When we came here with our last Ark ship, our last fleet. The speaker was male, a human. He bore the uniform and insignia of an admiral. He was old, with graying hair and many lines along his face. The people had learned much of the humans from the spire, from the voices, had worked very hard to learn as much as they could. We have fought them for 400 of our years, 600 or so of yours. If you track time as we did, the horror at the thought of a war that could last so long, grief, sorrow, pity. The people had known war, and thought that they had understood the horrors of such things could unleash. They'd been wrong, it seemed, naive, blissfully so. We thought to flee, to escape them, a final ruse. Our homeworld is long dead, even as I record this message, a distant memory. But we hoped to start again. Your world is special, hidden. Your moons have hidden you from our enemy. Hopefully still hide you, should we win the battle here. More will come for us and find you. If we lose, they will leave, never to return, hopefully. Your people have a choice. Should you stay there on your birth world, you will be safe, unnoticed, and hidden. You will be able to live in peace, I hope. The Admiral sighed quietly as a commotion began to rise around him. He stood on one of the spires. In the background, other humans could be heard, contact reports, enemy ships approaching. If you leave your birth world, if the enemy still exists, they will find you someday. It is what they do. Any competition amongst the stars is to be stomped out, destroyed, erased, then forgotten. So a choice. We give you everything we have, everything we know, to do with as you choose. We will fight them here, one last time, and we will lose so that you have a chance to make that choice someday. The Admiral smiled, sorrow in his eyes, not for what would come of him and his people, but for them, it seemed. For their people. Humanity had known the wonders of traveling to other worlds, of traveling among the stars, and had known the horrors of centuries of war. Yet he felt sorrow for them, for the choice they would have to make, to safely live in ignorance, safe in the warm embrace of their birth world, but to never leave it and her moons. Or to take up where humanity had left off and venture into the stars, perhaps to suffer the same fate. If you choose to come to the stars, if you meet them one day, tell them humanity sent you. I think they're going to remember us. The Admiral grinned then, a fierce display of defiance. Silence. The message spread through the people of the world. The probe could make out the remnants of the lost Ark ship. It had been huge, even compared to the spires. Dead. The enemy had turned its weapon upon the last hope of humanity, shattered it, torn it apart with such savagery, to be apparent even so many centuries later. Recordings of the battle that was fought outnumbered greatly. The human fleet had fought for days in the voids of space. But for every enemy ship they destroyed, more came. Recordings of every message, every video feed of human crews struggling to keep their ships in the fight, to strike out at the enemy one last time. Boarding actions of humans fighting against horrors worse than the demons and monsters of their myths, horrid amalgams of flesh and machine. No fixed form to them, limb and tentacle and chitinous claw, all fused with wire and metal and rivet. The human fleet fought to protect the lumbering Ark ship at their center. But numbers won the day. Human ships died in the cold void. Exploded, were torn asunder, rammed, or were rammed. The final stand. Then the Ark ship died under the guns of hundreds of enemy ships. It was slow and brutal. Holes were torn into the huge vessel, and its cargo was exposed to the void. And when the enemy was done, they simply left. A lone human ship drifted like a ship rudderless in the sea towards their world, unnoticed by the enemy. Or they were simply indifferent to the derelict ship. With the transmission came more data than their computers could hold. New machines were built. Vast warehouses filled end to end with servers just to try and hold it all. But the transmissions repeated, and had been for centuries, offering to them everything humanity had to give, hoping that one day the people would be ready to hear it. Advancement. The information was studied, adapted, applied. The various religions debated what should be done, what the message meant, what the gods and spirits would want them to do. Governments, too, debated. To leave their world was to risk destruction someday, to risk facing the enemy that had destroyed the humans. A species that had offered to them everything given them a chance to live in peace if they chose it, granted them that chance with the lives of their entire race. Advancement, debate, but no war, no conflict, no uprising or unrest. Decision. Their first moon colony, their first crude ship to their nearest planet. Lessons were learned, technology adapted and applied. The first successful weapons test was only 10 years after humanity's last transmission was heard. Their first FTL probe was named in a way the humans would surely have appreciated, sent to the nearest solar system. It would arrive in only a few short years. Its name proudly emblazoned on its hull, a name that would be seen again and again as the people reached for the stars. Humanity. Humanity sent us. End of story. There we go. Pew pew.
I apologize for this bright one. But for some reason it's not an HFY story, it's a off-site story. Which I don't have a problem with, I just can't control the brightness. Bunch of new people streaming in. Hello. Welcome to the stream where I'm doing workity stuff. I hope you all are having a fantastic day. You have any questions, any comments, just pop them in the chat. I will answer if appropriate and possible. But more importantly, I hope you enjoy my ramblings as I try to record some stuff. And drink my boomer juice. Good morning, Charles. I hope you're doing well. That's true, James, but you can still outspite the universe even if you die. Well, the race dies. Oh, that sounds like a travesty that needs to be sorted. One way or the other. Kill the pot or fill the pot. Or both. How that works. Stretching the old neck.
Trying to relieve the tension.
Another one bites the dust. Good afternoon. Morning still. Good morning, Madra. I hope you're doing well today. Or this evening, or morning, or whatever time unit you happen to be working on. Boomer Juice does fight back. G'day! Maximum 666. I hope you're doing well. Fair enough. It's barely morning for me as well. It is 11:39 right now. So, early afternoon. Just relaxing, resting my voice before the next story, so chat time. Hydration time. It's awesome to hear, Maximum. Awesome to hear. That is the best one can ever really hope for us to be as well as can be. Definitely see the pickup of viewers at around this time, which I imagine is early morning in America. Somewhere between 4 and 7 or 8 would be my guess. I could look it up. Fair enough. So, hitting the people waking up and heading to work, basically. Which, I mean, there have been successful streamers in this time slot. Maximum, I'm not really liking it. It has been raining. It's the wettest season they've had in years. So it's just basically been constant rain. Other than that, it's great. So, I mean, I come from South Africa, specifically Johannesburg, where we can go months without rain, literally. So having 2 months of almost solid rain is just wrong. But other than that, the temperatures are nice. I'm taking a bit of used to the humidity because we're closer to the coast. So that's a bit of a pain in the ass. But we are apparently heading into spring, so we should get some more warmer weather. Then I can bust out my white legs and blind some low-flying aircraft. It's my favorite time of year. That's not good, Mark. Well, I'm not sure whether rain or snow is better. I'd imagine it's rain because it filters through, but snow sits and then melts. I mean, I love the fact that in England, 2 weeks without rain is considered a drought. In South Africa, 3 or 4 months without rain is considered a drought. In fact, some places where I lived had water rations for years, decades. That's how bad it was. Well, at least I should be in the same season as most people now. I've gone from autumn, winter, beginning of spring, winter, beginning of spring. But it's same wet season though. So in South Africa summer was our wet season. Here winter is the wet season, which is strange to me. But it makes sense. Just one of those things you don't normally think about. Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Just, right now, the weird thing for me, the weather's weather. It's the light, the sun. So I wake up at 7, 8, and the sun's shining. And I go to bed, and until 9 o'clock at night, the sun is still shining. It's very, very odd. In South Africa, the time is more consistent. It's just not as long. So in Northern Hemisphere, you have short days in winter and then really long days in summer. South Africa, it's pretty close. Winter and summer, it's about 2 hours difference in daylight. So, yeah, even with daylight savings, I think we're at 10 or 11 hours of sunlight per day here now. And, I work in my studio, so there's no glass. I can't see outside. So I walk out of here at 8 o'clock at night and just stare at the day. Very weird. Very weird. Definitely affects with the internal clock. So, in South Africa, it's what? I think the longest will be 6 o'clock in the morning till about 7 at night. But such is life. Re 202. Oh yeah, no. I'll get used to it eventually. It's just odd now. That's insane, maximum. That just does not process for me. Although, I have heard that Antarctica has a base that you can visit as a normal person. And certain times of years there's a 24-hour sun. That'll be pretty cool. Cold, but cool. There's even a marathon there. Why you would do this, I'm not sure. I'm not a fan of running at the best of times, but flying to Antarctica for running is, yeah. Because you can fly there, so there's no boats or anything. It's about the same here in Portugal. 16 hours, 14 hours, somewhere around there. South Africa is 7 to 8 hours. But because there's so few clouds, it's got more sun per day on average. Wasn't there a vampire movie based on that? Where they have 3 months of darkness. I like that vampire movie. 30 Days of Night. There we go. It was fun. The second one was bleh, but the first one was pretty cool. And the comic was just stretching out the tension in my vocal cords. Okay, I think enough faffing about. We should move on to the next story. I apologize for the light mode. Greetings, ladies and metal gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Re-Tifos, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called The First Second of Eternity. Written by Riley Wrights. We should just kill her and be done with it, General Clyde growled, glaring at the hologram in the center of the room. An ordinary human woman, circa 23rd century, placidly cleaned a homemade mug. She was doing the old-fashioned way, with her own 2 hands. That's not how the xenocratic stars operate, Clyde. Clyde had been working with XK4 for too long for the artificial intelligence's tiny tone. Ugh. That's not how the xenocratic stars operate, Clyde. Clyde had been working with XK4 for far too long, for the artificial intelligence's chiding tone to bother him. For the artificial intelligence's chiding tone to bother him. Alarian of Earth's depravity has forever scarred the cultural and political landscape of both of our home nations. Showing decency in the face of such as she will work wonders towards easing the star's mindset back into a peacetime stance. Clyde non-committally grunted. Still, Alarian's attempted omnicide has left huge swaths of the galaxy empty. I don't know anybody who hasn't suffered a loss at her hands. Can't say keeping her alive, let alone in a state of eternal bliss, is going to keep much public support. She is hardly in a state of eternal bliss, XK4 chided. We have selected what we believe to be the single most contented moment of her life, reconstructed it, and placed her in a time loop placed her in a time loop to relieve it of our eternity. Placed her in a time loop to relive it for eternity. Clyde flinched as the hologram of Valerian spun and hurled the delicate map at the wall, shattering mere inches from his eye. Alarian stared at the unharmed wall for a few seconds, breathing heavily. Clyde unconsciously looked away, finding the smooth grey metal of the room around him easier to meet than Alarian's furious gaze. That's the single most contented moment for her life, Clyde asked. Well, XK4 acknowledged, she hardly would have She hardly would have attempted extermination of all other sentient life if she had a healthy upbringing. This was, the best we could find. Alarian's eyes narrowed, and she murmured something under her breath. That was the last either of them saw before the screen blinked and the scene reset, back to Alarian washing a cup. Clyde frowned. What if she gets out? She will not. That room is in a box made of purity. The hell is that? A unique substance, formed at the beginning of the universe, in the conditions we no longer can, nor ever will be in
nor ever will be able to replicate. It is by far the most durable substance which has existed. It is by far the most durable substance which has ever or will ever exist. It is immune to dimensional displacement, temporal manipulation, universal collapse. I get the idea, Clyde said softly. Hilarion threw the mug once more. This time, having expected it, Clyde didn't bat an eye. At what came next, though, he rubbed his chin. Did she do that the last time around? Did what? Whatever she says at the end. Here, can you give me audio? I think it was different this time. A faint chime sounded, and XK4 acquiesced. Once more, they waited in silence until Hilarion threw the mug. 9, Hilarion said tonelessly. 9? Is there any context for that? Clyde asked. No, I'm afraid not. The number 9 holds no specific significance to Hilarion of Earth. They watched the loop occur once more in silence. 10. Hilarion stared down at the shattered remains of a cup, an unreadable expression on her face. She's counting up, Clyde said, eyes narrowing. How is that possible? Does she have anything on her that would negate a time loop? No. We would know. An object made of purity is, of course, immune to temporal manipulations, but the only purity within a dozen light years is helping contain her. She did have enhancements, right? Standard accelerated cognition and super perception. Yes, but once more, neither of those are anywhere close to being able to detect a time loop from within it. Clyde sighed, rubbing his forehead. After some time he paused. Hilarion said 11. I suppose that at the very least this makes my job simpler, Clyde said. It's clear that somehow you're not containing her properly. Hell, she was the kind of twisted genius who could single-handedly double the death toll of the universe. I wouldn't put past her to outthink an XK-class AI and wriggle out of a time loop. Even if she were able to defeat the time loop, which, let us be clear, she is in no danger of doing, she would still be in a sealed box made of a substance which will outlive the rest of reality. She is contained, humanely and safely. I don't think you heard me the first time, Clyde glared at the room around him. It was a shame that XK4 didn't have a face for him to stare at. Hilarion of Earth is a monster, and she does not deserve anything so gentle as to relive the highlights of her life for the rest of her days. Moreover, she is a monster who we, of Earth... Moreover, she is a monster who we of Earth are at least partially responsible for introducing to the universe. It is our responsibility to make sure that she never harms anybody ever again. An admirable sentence. An admirable sentiment, which I share. I too am in I too aim to ensure the welfare of all living beings. Do not think for a moment that the armed technocracy will prevail at any contest against the xenocratic stars. Hilarion of Earth is under our purview, not yours. Clyde clenched his fists. Why? You're supposed to be so much smarter than us, so dumb it down a little. Why the hell would you protect a being whose only desire is to cleanse the universe of all life? XK4's tone was precisely as even and moderated as it had been throughout the conversation. Because, after everything, she is still a living being, still worthy of existence. That is the mandate that you claim to share, after all. The mandate, which is the mandate, which is the antithesis of her life's work. If you must find some schadenfreude in her situation, then claim that one victory and leave. Clyde ground his teeth, but XK4 was right. The armed technocracy had been too damaged by Hilarion's crusade, it having originated from their homeworld and capital. He had little to no power over XK4. He had little to no power over what XK4 would do. If the artificial intelligence wanted to keep Hilarion alive, then she stayed alive. For now. Kyle turned to leave. This isn't going to be the last you'll hear about this, he warned. No, XK4 mused. It really won't, will it? That point won't come up for another 2,000 years, give or take. Kyle
Clyde blinked. Excuse me? 2,664 years later. Of all the stars and all the worlds, of all the cultures and societies spanning the pan-spatial servidity, there were only a few institutions which could truly call themselves museums. By the modern definition, in a society so far past post-scarcity, it barely remembered what the words meant. The only thing scarce was scarcity itself. No work of art was truly unique, not when it could be copied, down to the molecule, at the whim of a child. Hardly any pieces of architecture were immune to the same fate. The strangely twisted pathways of space and time which powered XK-class AIs were one of them, as only so many of them could exist without straining the fabric of reality itself. But by their very nature, there were perhaps only 9 or 10 truly unique objects of their type in the universe, and even the most precious metals and gems lost their allure when people had commissioned entire planets made of nothing but the stuff. As such, the concept of building meant to house unique and rare items had been somewhat out of fashion. Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, Caveman 110. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Caveman. Good. One of the last such institutions contained both an XK-class AI and the largest deposit of the last truly imitable material, purity. The final museum, then, was truly worthy of its name. General Clyde XVI materialized in a utilitarian pulse of light in the middle of the final museum, although a physical body was not strictly necessary to appreciate nearly everything in the the pan-spatial civility had to offer. Purity was locked into good old-fashioned physical reality, and as such, good old-fashioned physical reality is what General Clyde XVI found himself entering. A pleasant chime sounded next to him, moments before a shimmering, partially translucent humanoid projection appeared. Intrinsically, General Clyde XVI knew that it was Avatar of the XK4.
So it's Clyde XVI now, Bifurcated your existence even further than the last time I see, XK4 said. Bifurcated your existence even further than the last time I see, XK4 said.
I have experimented with plenty of other forms, General Clyde XVI said offhandedly, but I have to admit, I just don't feel right without keeping at least part of me human. He stared at the centerpiece exhibit, a Larian of Earth in her eternal prison.
It's interesting, you know. She switched to thermite numerical system. There's little else that'll let her say 670 billion 9,145.
Big number, big number.
There's little else. There is little else that'll let us say 670 billion 9,144,238 in the time she has left.
She's still counting, huh? Anyone figured out why that is?
Of course. Purity is unaffected by the time loop. As such, each time she strikes it with her cup, it is infinitesimal amount of damage is dealt to the wall. Damage which is not repaired by the loop. Her augmentations allow her to perceive and correctly interpret this damage.
Ah, Clyde tuned the final moment. Clyde XVI tuned into the final museum's broadcast for a moment. A Larian is a perfect example of the A Larian is a perfect example of the orthogonality. A Larian is a perfect example of the orthogonality thesis at its most extreme, though she was undoubtedly one of the most intelligent and capable individuals of the 23rd century. The goal towards which she worked is antithetical to our modern understanding of morality today. It is common knowledge nowadays that the march of entropy is inevitable.
though it will take uncountable trillions upon trillions upon trillions of years. Eventually, we will bleed every large drop of energy we have into the vast, empty cosmos, and the universe will fall dark forever. At current projections, this will occur. Clyde 16 winced at the aforementally large number was shoved into his brain. It didn't hurt, per se, but the human mind which he was currently occupying was not designed to handle numbers which, if written out, would promptly form a black hole from their sheer size. There's a sad fate is, of course, that in the far future, however, this sad fate is, of course, in the far, far future. However, Alarian saw a way around it. She has designed a reactor which would do the impossible, create energy from nothing, and give the universe a truly infinite lifespan. The one catch, activating it would initiate a chain reaction which would utterly obliterate our reality. The finest minds in the galaxy at the time had checked and double-checked her work, and proven it beyond a doubt. To save the universe from a silent future, she would have to destroy its present beyond repair. She knew that the vast majority of the rest of the universe did not share her view, that the sacrifice of everything they knew and loved was worth a universe in which they could never die. And so she set out on her last, final quest. Fatal quest, to silence all opposition and burn this reality away to make room for a better one. This is the choice we have made as a society, to live for whatever time we have left and accept all things die. Flight 16 was broken out of his reverie by XK4. I have called you here, XK4 finally said, to say goodbye. Flight 16 blinked. What? Ow! Why? As you know, XK4 said, an XK-class artificial intelligence is a pinnacle of creation. My very existence drains the resources of this universe to their limit, and I have decided, for the first time in a long time, for the first time in all the long, long years Flight 16 had known XK4, the artificial intelligence hesitated. I have decided that, in accordance with my mandate to give sentient beings of this universe as much time as they could possibly have left, I must be decommissioned. The resources I take up are too critical to be wasted on sustaining my existence. No, Flight 16 stood up. Our society is more capable than it has been at any point in history. I can make and unmake planets on a whim. We've moved past the age of needs. Space and time bow to our will. There is no reason. Those are exactly the reasons why I must vanish, XK4 calmly said, as will my brethren. The population of panspatial severity consumes a vaster amount of energy than you can imagine every second to fuel their godlike capabilities. I've walked countless futures, and not a single one of them do you need my guidance any longer. Flight 16's shoulders slumped. So Ilarion was in the right all along. It begins. Even with all the advances we've made, we are still slaves to the end of the universe. Ilarion was unwaveringly correct, XK4 said, but she was never in the right. Nothing justifies what she suggested. Flight 16 grimaced. Yeah, you're right, of course. Don't worry, I'm not thinking of perpetuating a second omnicide. As one of our last acts, XK4 said, we will permanently remove the schematics for a machine from our society and erect barriers to stop anyone from walking in her footsteps. This decision was set in stone long ago. We will not snuff out so many lives for any purpose, no matter how grand. Always the bigger person, Flight 16 murmured. AI and post-human sat there together, silent for a few moments. Then he said, Is there anything, I could do for you? As a matter of fact, the ash shimmered, and a white disc popped into Flight 16's hand. Yes, something to remember me by. Flight 16 raised an eyebrow. Damn, a disc of purity, huh? Huh, hell of a gift. I didn't know AIs could get sentimental. XK made no response. What? Was that too far? XK4. Hey, XK4! Flight 16 turned to his left. XK4 was gone. He hadn't even been looking. 5,231,000 years. No. 5.231 million years later, Clyde walked into the remnants of the last museum, walked the ultimate humility, after having held the cosmos in the palms of his hand, after being linked to the collective larger than humanity could have ever dreamt of, after painting the sky with stars as his brush, after living a trillion little lives of depth and satisfaction, after everything he'd been through, he was nothing but a human once more. The last museum was designed for beings. The last museum was designed for beings who could fit. The last museum was designed for beings who could flit through dimensions as naturally as a butterfly could flap its wings. As such, the architecture didn't lend itself to letting Clyde's dimensional form reach his goal. He still had some vestiges of power left, though, and in the end, he was simply forced to cut through multiple walls to reach his destination. Ilarion stood in a box of purity, the voice of a long-dead museum guide still narrating her life story. Clyde stared at the enemy he'd faced so long ago, then he leaned on a wall and began to talk. So, XK4, things have gotten bad. It's hard to tell how many of us are left. The network's been down for longer than I can remember. After the news went out that the rate we were burning through the universe's energy supplies, we'd all be dead within a millennium. I think that we should at least... I think that we took it as best we could. We were all such good people, we thought. We could handle downscaling our luxuries. And so they went, one by one. The power to create and destroy worlds. The powers to reshape the lands around us. The power to live forever. The power to talk to a friend across the galaxy at a whim. It worked for a year or so, but you can't take the fish out of water. You can't throw a monkey into space, and you can't tell a universe of gods that they had to become mortals. We'd been spoiled rotten, the lot of us, drunk on technology. When the time came to sober up, well, we all had one heck of a hangover. The AIs were the first to go. Went the way you did, XK. Apparently a brain the size of a planet is just unsustainable. They all had faith in us, though, or algorithmic certainty that we'd do the right thing in the end and live the best lives that we could without us. Sort of like you did, before you abandoned us. Next, everyone born after Alarion's crusade just sort of gave up. Used what little allotment of energy they had to go out in a blaze of pure, unadulterated glory. Undiluted glory. Quadrillions of people dying every second, laughter on their lips. It was a thing to behold. And then, well, those who remembered. When I had to let go, when I had to become human again, at least I had my old identity to fall back on. I knew what it was like before we had everything, before the universe was at our fingertips. And yet, I still find myself empty. After all the things I've done, this damn dark world just lost its appeal. As long as there was still someone else out there, I could at least have someone to talk to, but I spent the last 400 years scouring the cosmos, and it's empty. If there's anyone else out there, they've gone silent. I don't think I'll ever find anyone else ever again. Light shook his head ruefully at Ilarion, still eternally prisoned. He held out his hand, and a mug of beer of indeterminate origin popped into existence. He took a long, deep swig. You were right, Ilarion. You were right all along. I'd build that damn machine myself if the XKs didn't rip it for the schematics from every database to ever exist. He toasted nobody, eyes tracking Ilarion's eternal dance. Congratulations, Ilarion. You got what you wanted. You win. But the last of his power, Clyde wished for a peaceful death. 9.972 quadrillion years later. The war was hard, but nothing lasted forever. 4 more. Not even purity. It had taken a while, 3 more. But she'd finally done it. A 6 trillion throws of a cup. 2 more. That was all it took for the hardest substance in the universe to break. 1 more. The wall of purity came crashing down, long after the universe had been rendered sterile and empty, its occupants driven insane by eternity. Ilarion of Earth stepped out of her timeless prison and cast her eyes around the defunct museum, stepping over a pile of long rotten dust. A glimmer within the pile caught her eye, and she knelt to investigate it. A disk of purity rested in the center of the remains. Ilarion picked up the disk, rubbing it between her fingers absently, then tossed it away, looking up. The sky was dim, but stars still glimmered. Enough energy had been carefully husbanded over the eons that, when she cautiously stepped out of a box, the nearly dead facility hummed to life. And with it, so did a message. "Hello, Ilarion." Ilarion spun around, palms up, until she identified the voice's owner. She relaxed. An XK class. They'd been in her plan all along. If you are listening, the time you have been awaiting has finally come. The citizens of this universe are, without exception, dead and gone. I no longer see any mortal quandary with this cold reality's destruction. You are free to proceed with your final plan. The facility around her lit up, and schematics she devised an eternity ago flickered in the air. I have attempted to construct the machine to your specifications, but my last action was nearly 10 quadrillion years ago. It is entirely possible that, even with all the precautions I took, something has gone wrong. Ilarion nodded, staring at the blueprints. Years of the unforeseeable happenstance had damaged several parts of the machine, but Ilarion was one of the most intelligent individuals of her time. It was nothing she couldn't fix. With her at the wheel, the universe's salvation was finally realized. I wish you well, Ilarion of Earth. I hope the next universe treats you kinder than this. Ilarion touched a few motes of light, and the last greatest machine that anyone would ever know sparked the fires of a new world. An eternal world. She never looked back, even as those fires consumed her. End of story. Alrighty, I think that's going to be the last story today. Kaplooey. I suppose there's one way to treat it. Yeah, very similar, Lord Vulpix. If it's the one I'm thinking of. Wee day. There you go. Corrected. Alrighty, it's been 3 hours of stream. A bit longer than yesterday. More appropriate for a stream time, apparently. Anything less than 3 hours is a waste of time, according to the internet. So, yeah. I think I'm going to call it a day, do other work, and yeah.
Thank you all for stopping past and listening to my ramblings. It's very much appreciated. And with the cost of time these days, it is super appreciated. Yeah. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to try to stream every day if I can. But same time, same place tomorrow. We'll do some more stories. And I hope you all have a fantastic day. Goodbye.